Happy to have in the studio right now from Talking Horse Production, Ed Hanson. Welcome in.
Good morning.
And how are you doing, sir?
I'm good, except my voice is about an octave lower than normal.
That sounds really good.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
I should be on the radio.
That
wait a
could
minute,
be.
I am.
You are. All right, this Deep Talk segment will continue as we move around the room. One of our guests probably will not be able to do that. We'll test her acting skills. Luke Tudball in the studio as well. How are you, sir?
I am very well, thank you.
Excellent. Very good. Very good. And his wife, Heather Bagnall. How are you?
I'm good.
Oh, see, there we go. I knew we could do this. All right, the Deep Talk segment continues. All right, Talking Horse Productions. You've got a couple of productions coming up in April. We're concerned about the one that's coming up right now called Ferdinand. I want to get to that in a minute, but for
Right.
folks who don't know, where is Talking Horse Productions located?
Talking Horse Theater,
theater.
where Talking Horse Productions does their stuff, is on a little tiny street downtown called St. James Street. It's one block east of Orr, and we're in a large purple warehouse that used to originally be an electrical warehouse, and now it's a conglomeration of different businesses, including Talking Horse Theater.
Okay, well, Nelson's changing the color of the building because now it's easy to identify.
It's purple
right?
with orange windows and doors. You really can't miss it.
What a great color combination. It sounds like a painting misadventure we had at our house one time. Anyway, let's move on. The production is called Ferdinand. Luke, you are the star of this. It's a one-man show, correct?
It is, yeah, 50 minutes or so, 48, 50 minutes or so, and it's all me. I get to play 5 or 6 different characters, including Tom, who's the main character. He's a single dad, bringing up his son with the same feelings and thoughts of the book that inspired this show, which is the story of Ferdinand the Bull. The ideas of being big and kind, but strong and gentle.
Bigger challenge for you, a one-man show or doing a show written by your wife?
I don't know if I can answer that on air.
She's not listening.
No, I think they're both a challenge, but I would say actually I think both of them are things which I really enjoyed the challenge for, because you know it's sort of terrifying taking on a 50-minute show by yourself, but once you kind of get in the body of it, it's actually really fun to do, and we've always sort of bounced off each other in quite a great creative way, so because we're very different but also very complementary, so that was also a fun challenge to kind of find a way through the script, and it did change from the very first version to what it is now.
I've been married for a long time. I recognize that look. That's the look of reassurance from Heather. Now, you wrote this, and as Luke mentioned, it's off of the book. How did you whittle all of this down into a 50-minute, one-person production?
Well, that was actually about a 2-year journey, because originally I set out to write simply an adaptation of the book, The Story of Ferdinand. And I was actually quite inspired by Luke. He reminded me of the bull, because he sort of has this strong exterior, but then he's got this very kind heart. But I spent about 2 years trying to get a hold of the publisher and was unsuccessful. It was going into public domain, and then it didn't go into public domain, and then the publication was sold a couple times. So in the interim, I had done this treatment, this idea of sort of bookending the story with this character Tom and his son, who is named Ferdinand. That's his namesake, is the bull. And I had actually booked the show based on my treatment. Well, I couldn't do that because I didn't have the rights to it.
Right.
So I took out that whole section and filled in the story, and ended up with a story that I really loved. I took I've spent years working in arts education, and I took all of these things I had seen in the schools and seen with my students and seen with parenting, and kind of wrote a love letter to parenting. And I wanted to create this character of the single dad, because the father-son story is not one that we see a lot. And I wanted to incorporate ideas of gender stereotyping and the messages that we send to our children, but also a story of hope for not just for kids but for parents.
So there is hope, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, because our last one's at the house, and she's going to be going to college this fall, but. For you, and that's the voice of the writer, Heather Bagnall, the actor, all 50 minutes of it in various forms, Luke Tudball. And for you, having to work that dynamic between the single dad, or just the dad, doesn't matter, single or married, and the son, how was that for you?
It's an interesting dynamic. I think that, we went through, as I mentioned, a few different versions in the beginning, and I did sort of toy with trying to make Ferdy, as he becomes called, a separate character. And I think where we've ended up now is really kind of Tom's version of Ferdy, which is really more true. Anyway, if you try to kind of take on the character of your kids or whoever, you don't want to make them into a cartoon of themselves. I think one of the really lovely things about this story is the story is so true to life. We've had people come and see it in a couple of productions that we've done previously, who have said, how old are your kids, which is a massive compliment because we don't have kids ourselves.
Okay.
But we've worked with them so much, and people have actually said, you're telling my life story. Like, I've said all of these things to my kids, or to my grandkids.
Yeah, we probably have.
Because the characters are so true. They're so realistic, and they have aspects of everybody in them.
So, to play the part of the son in that dynamic, you just mentioned you don't have kids. Who were your lab rat parents?
We had a lot of friends that
are they still friends?
They still are.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. All right, so that experiment worked well.
When we did this production the very first time in Pittsburgh, and at the Pittsburgh Fringe, and we had some people with kids come, but we were very lucky to be in DC shortly after that with some friends of ours who have young kids, and they came to see the show, and again the father said to us after, he said, I've said all of these things, how did you know that? Like, how do you know that when you aren't a parent yourself? And I think it really is just from our experience of being in education and working in schools. We both worked in summer camps, all sorts of things like that, and we've just kind of picked things up almost by osmosis sometimes and kind of stored them in a little drawer in the back of our head or whatever, and now they've all entered into this thing that we've got.